Welcome to another episode of Prison Bosses. Uh, Today's episode, I'm here with a gentleman named Mr. Grant Adam. We had the pleasure of meeting at a reentry conference at the Homeboy Industries in California earlier this year. Our brief little run-in, you could see the synergies were there right away. I told him a little about the show, told me a little bit about his story, how he bossed up and the things he's doing now in Michigan. And so I'm just really excited to have Adam here. I'm going to be learning a lot about Adam, just like you will, as tuning in. And so, with no further ado, let me introduce you guys to Adam Grant, the executive director of A Brighter Choice, based out of Michigan. Adam, thanks for coming on the show, and how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. It's a brighter way, just so everybody knows, so you know where to look it up.
Here it is.
I often joke about when they started the organization, they probably wanted to call it A Better Way, and that was already taken. But I like A Brighter Way because the fact is it takes everybody's light to make a brighter way, and so it's really easy to be cheesy, with A Brighter Way.
No, I like that, brother. And I love the shirt. My scars, my story. And that's a little bit of what we're looking to get into today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Adam, about your upbringing, where you originally come from, and then lead us to what got you incarcerated.
I pretty much grew up in Lansing, Michigan, which is the capital. Everybody knows Michigan and they know Detroit. I'm not that close to it. I spent a lot of time there. So what up, though, to my people from Detroit? So I spent my life like a lot of people did. I was in the 80s. So a lot of things were kind of changing and evolving, and gang activity was going on all around me. I didn't partake, but there are certain aspects you had to partake in. Yep. I was born to a 15-year-old mother. She did her best, but I was also pretty bullheaded. So I went out and I started, hanging in those streets pretty young. I did my first armed robbery at the age of 12. First incarcerated at 17. First went to prison at 19. And on my second bit in prison, I went at 22, and I came home at 49. I did 27 years for an armed robbery of a bank. So a lot of times, people will look at me and they don't really think that, I would have done that kind of time, or that I've been in prison, let alone that I did that amount of time. And I tell them I'm not an accidental tourist to prison. I earned my way to prison. If they build prisons for a reason, I was one of the reasons they built them.
You said a lot, and that's powerful. One, kudos to you after doing such a large stretch like that. Especially with a criminal record that would be perceived as a violent record by many employers. How were you able to navigate and put yourself in a position today that you're an executive director of a nonprofit?
I think one of the things is that we sometimes forget the very things that get us in trouble are the things that can also help us to succeed. I've always been stubborn. So I've been stubborn enough that I kept knocking on doors. No is not the worst thing anybody's ever told me. So I keep showing up at doors. I keep part-time leads to full-time. Full-time leads to the ability to show up in other places, because that's kind of my philosophy. Just show up and see what happens. Right. So, I got out 2 months before COVID. So I had just got into a job. I was 30 for 30 in interviews, and they kept rescinding the offer once they realized how much time I'd actually done in prison. And I finally got 2 jobs. And the same week that I got 2 jobs, the world started to shut down. I was outside of the Secretary of State canvassing for the Elliott Larson Act here. And the Secretary of State literally locked its doors. It kept people out, and the people who were in stayed in. And the next day they shut down Michigan State University's campus while I was sitting on it. And that Sunday the business closed down. So I lost my job as quick as I got it. I found another one, partially from that stubbornness, because I don't settle. You talk about bossing up. I believe the boss gene is within all of us. You just have to tap into it. And I tapped into it a long time before I ever came home. So I was not going to settle. I was not going to be satisfied until I was making a difference. I came home at 49, man. And at 49, you ain't trying. I just got hernia surgery. I'm not trying to lift stuff. I'm not trying to carry stuff. I got to work for 20 more years,
That's right.
to be able to retire right. So I need to do something that feeds me, not just puts food on my plate. But the main thing about that is I shot beyond where people told me I should shoot. Most of my jobs, they would be like, man, you can't get that job. And I'd be like, let them tell me no. Are you doing the interview? Are you hiring? So I went to those, and a lot of times I'd end up in a hiring manager. They didn't really have any power, but the two main jobs that I got, I ended up in front of the owner and the CEO of the company, and they heard my story, believed in me, and gave me a chance. And then finally, showing up actually brought executive director of A Brighter Way to my doorstep. I didn't even apply for this job. They saw me doing other work and came to me.
Wow. So a couple of things for the listeners, as you guys are tuning in, especially my individuals my brothers and sisters who have done long stretches or might even have violent records on their jacket. Resilience. This brother said he aims high. Dream big, y'all. Like, I mean that sincerely. Even how big, whatever you think a big dream is, I can guarantee you need to think bigger. And so that's what this brother did. He didn't go with the status quo. He went above and beyond. Another thing that I really hope you guys pull from that segment and what Adam mentioned is also he identified that sometimes you got to go to the top. So he got to these positions by talking to the CEO, by talking to the owner. It didn't just stop with the HR person. He got the buy-in from the people at the very top, forcing everyone else below to have to buy into what he was saying. And so again, aim big, think big, aim high, and then also don't settle. As he said, he went 30 for 30. We're not talking about 3-point shots here, guys. We're talking about being denied opportunities, but it didn't stop him from continuing to knock at doors. So you have to be resilient, and you never hear no. No is just a maybe that you're going to turn into a yes. And so, Adam, let's dive back a little bit. So you said your first armed robbery at 12. Can you talk a little bit about how you ended up in that space?
Well, I'm old, so it was actually a Zephyr gas station. Most people, unless they live down in Texas, don't even know what Zephyr is.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
But yeah, so I don't want to make it sound like it's anything more than it really is, because a lot of this was just me being a kid that felt like he didn't fit in, that always felt a little bit rebellious, that always, like many, thought that he knew better than the people around me. I mean, I understand that my circumstances as a white male in America are very different than a lot of people who end up in prison and have to do some of the things that they do. I realized that I didn't have to, but I didn't know well enough to know that I didn't really want to either, and I did it. My whole thing was kind of like I talked about, kind of going hard right now. That's always been my thing, has always been extreme, doing things to the nth degree and always being known for doing that. I just didn't know how to channel it in a positive way. So if somebody was like, we're going to go do this, and be like, well, let's go get, my nickname was Dino for a while. My nickname was Taz. Let's go get Dino, and I was the mission man.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I was defined by, and what my reputation was. Like I said, I didn't really have to. It wasn't that we grew up. My mom was on welfare. My mom was, like I said, 15-year-old mother. She was divorced twice by the time I was 8.
Wow.
So we didn't really have nothing, but she put work in too. She got her degree. She did all those things, but patience, you ain't patient when you're a preteen or a teenager. I ain't trying to wait for that stuff to happen.
Nope.
I'm tired of the powdered milk that we got with the state cheese. Oh man. Sidetrack. I was so mad when I came home that they had changed the recipe for that block of cheese. That thing is nasty now. It was amazing when I grew up.
That was some real mac and cheese right there, right?
That's right. No, they don't know.
They don't know about that. These young ones don't know. But you know,
No.
you hit on something that's really important too. I think you said something, you didn't have to do it, right? And then you even said, you know, there's some people who feel like they have to. And I'm a
Yeah.
true believer. I was in the same boat as you. I didn't have to do the things that I did. I chose to do it. And I think a lot of the people that I find who have found success post incarceration have actually owned every decision that they made. And it's never
Sure.
that I was forced to do, I didn't have to do, I chose to do this. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it seems like you're someone who owns your stuff. And do you agree? Have you found in your walk-ins that people who tend to own what they've done tend to go on to be a little bit more successful than those who don't?
I believe everything's proportional. So yes, you have to own what you've done, but I don't buy into a lot of times what you hear about I take full and complete responsibility, because I think society has a responsibility. There are difference between reasons and excuses.
Yep.
They look the exact same. It's how you pick them up and use them that matters.
Yep.
There are reasons why people get into certain situations, but it does not excuse the behavior.
Agreed.
So like I talk about, people talk about regrets a lot, and and I've done a lot of things that are regrettable by most standards. But when people ask me, do I have any regrets? I have only one regret in my entire life, and I've done a lot of stuff, and the only regret that I have is that people got hurt. The results of it, I can't argue with. I would not be the person that I am today. I would not be. They joke about me being ATG, Adam the Great, in my office, because they see me as like some kind of reentry guru or something. But I wouldn't be that if I didn't go through every single challenge I did and make every single mistake that I did. And I'm so grateful that I didn't make some mistakes that you can't come back from.
I agree. And you know what, Adam, you put that so gracefully, because you're right. There are systematic things that just force some people to do the things that they do.
Yes.
But I do also agree with you, the part that there should be some ownership that is taken, because at the end of the day, we still had to execute and go out and do. And so now, Adam, while you were incarcerated, did you do anything to develop yourself in terms of like workforce development, personal development, that helped you so that way when you were released, you were in position that you could become what you are today?
The first 10 years, I didn't really. I mean, I did like everybody else. I was worried about what I had to spend on the commissary, and how many pen pals I had, and who could come up and visit me, and all of those same things. And especially, I don't know how it is in other states or the feds, or how it was back in the day, but in Michigan, basically you couldn't do any programming until you had 2 years or less left on your sentence. And when I'm doing a 27 to 50, and 2 for the gun, there was nothing available. However, I've always been clever. I just haven't always been wise. And so I actually was clever enough to realize that if I educated myself, then I could put proposals in on how to offer the classes to other people in the institutions. So about 17 years before I came home, I started really getting involved in programs by teaching them. By the time I came home, I had over 9,000 hours of classes and groups that I had facilitated while I was incarcerated.
Wow. And what do they say? I think they say it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert. So you had already essentially hit your expert mark. That's why you are Adam the Great. There it is right there.
There you go. Don't let my deputy director hear that, because he hates that term, but I'll take it.
Because you put the work in. And the reason I asked that, because I try to encourage our brothers and sisters who are locked up to take advantage of programming while you're there. Don't let the time do you, do the time. No. And like Adam just said, we're talking to people all across the nation, so every circumstance is different. But be clever. Figure out ways that you can still better yourself. Like Adam did, he bettered himself so that way he could then teach the courses, so he was still getting programming while helping others. And so there's always clever ways to get around things, and use that cleverness. I encourage
people say, people ask me, I've been home for 4.5 years. I came home in January 8th of 2020. They're like, how have you accomplished so much so quickly? I'm like, what do you mean so quickly? I've been doing this for 21 years.
Right.
So people need to understand that, because while you're incarcerated, you can we have a tendency to adapt to our environment. Like a goldfish in a bowl will only grow to the size of it. Yep. But the fact is, we have a choice as to some of these things that we will do and the habits that we set. So yes. The only thing that changed when I came home from prison, most people have to come home and they have to figure out who they are. I'd already figured out who I was. So the only thing that changed with me was my environment. That was it.
I already figured out who I was. Whew, that is so quotable, because you're right. Most people are, especially in there, we're adapting, we're around others, and we take on what they do. And even in the free world, you see it all of the time. People just do what's around them. We have more sheeps in this world than anything, right? Than actual people who are leading the pack. And so, finding out who you are is essential, and staying in that lane. So what work did you do to find out who Adam is?
Well, one, I challenged myself. A lot of people don't like to challenge themselves. And I mean, on a lot of levels, but the way that I think can be best described, I'm a metaphor and analogy person a lot of times. And I became what I call an emotional fireman. And what I mean by that is firemen are crazy, because when everybody else is running out of a burning building, they're running into it. Yep. So I started to realize that all the things that made me uncomfortable emotionally were the very things that I had to run towards, because if I didn't figure them out on my terms, then when they came up on their own, they were more daunting. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of those things still scare me, but they don't scare me the same way, because I've faced them, I've survived them. I know, I've wrestled them down, and shown that they can't overpower me. Most times with emotions and things like that, or with circumstances, we feel like we're going to become consumed by them. So sometimes you just have to run straight at it instead of away from it, And it's a penitentiary standard. When you come in, everybody says, "Oh man, you go take on the biggest," and that's what you do emotionally. We usually run from that stuff.
You're right. You're 100% right. I find the more that we attack things dead on, one, there's a conclusion that's going to be drawn. But if we just continue to run away from, and we now take the power of us dictating the outcomes, or helping to dictate and steer the outcomes, and we now allow someone else the opportunity to do that. And so I absolutely love that. So now, Adam, I know you're the workforce guru. And so, we have a lot of brothers and sisters who are listening to this right now who are, going to be coming home soon. And a lot of people are worried about the same thing you said. I have this record. It's going to be super hard for me to get a job, etc. Can you give some practical advice that you would tell others who have similar shared experiences on ways that they can increase their success levels when it comes to employment?
Well, one, do everything you possibly can before you come out. There's going to be too much to do anyway. So if you ever catch yourself saying, "I'll do that when I get out," check yourself. That's right. The other aspect of that is you guys are coming out at a time that having lived experience is not the worst thing in the world. There are some lanes that are going to be very grateful for that. Now, granted, some of the areas I tried to get into said you have a little bit too much lived experience. They were a little bit concerned about that. Well, better to have too much than not enough. And that's the thing. My story, my scars. I realized one thing, and this is some boss stuff right here, is you realize one thing. You've only got one product when you walk out them doors, and that's you. And if you don't believe in that product, who else is going to believe in that product? One of the things that just before I got this final job, before I got this executive director job, they called, somebody knew my supervisor, and they called my supervisor, and they said, "You think Adam's ready for this job?" Because remember, I was still on parole. I'd only been out for like 22 months when I got this job. And my supervisor said, "Adam was built for this role."
I love that. So
I lived what I believed. I manifested it through my actions. And when I show up at everything, I show up like a boss. That's just what you do, because when you realize you can't show up any other way.
That's right. won't shrink down. You know, one thing I think a lot of times individuals, well, one thing for the listener, Adam is 1,000,000% correct. Lived experience right now, especially when we talk about returning citizens, formerly incarcerated individuals, lived experience is what they're looking for. It's like the hot topic. And so it actually opens up opportunities for us who have been formerly incarcerated. And it's actually a great thing. And I wish it was something that they were doing before, because our lived experiences actually can help and shape other people so they can avoid those same experiences.
Yeah.
And so own what you've done, become a master of it, and also become a master of teaching others how not to do the same things. And there will be a bunch of opportunity for you when you get out of here.
Yeah.
And so in addition to that, Adam, so you mentioned being on parole. I'm assuming you're off now, the way you said it.
Yeah, I had to do 2 years.
Nice. And so
Hey, and also, first time off parole, I had been under supervision or incarceration from 1985 until 2020. I was either incarcerated, on the run, or under supervision for that entire period. I told my parole officer the first day I met him, I said, "You're going to get to count this victory that nobody else has ever been able to get." And he got it too.
Like you said you manifest. And once again, manifest and putting positive words out there that you're going to go out and accomplish. And how was your experience on parole with your parole officer as they seen you having the successes you were having?
I was blessed in a way with the parole officer that I had, because he was a younger guy. He had aspirations of going somewhere else. He hadn't been completely jaded by the system. Remember, I've been out twice. On my first bit, I had the old jaded parole officer who told me, everybody violates. It's my job to make sure you violate under my terms. And I did, because he told me that, and I left the room and never came back. But this one, it was kind of, it was different. He wasn't on that same level. He had things that he had to do statutorily. He let things off as he saw that I wasn't doing anything. And by the end of it, the relationship had become one of my giving more than my receiving, because I was bringing all kinds of resources to him, because there weren't any resources when I came in there. So in my jobs, I was collecting these resources and I kept pushing them back to him.
Other people, giving them resources that they could pull other people up.
And we kind of, paved the way for the next people that are coming too. So the next guy who comes out and says, "Listen, man, I'm focused. I'm going to make this happen." He's got a better opportunity with this guy now, because he's seen somebody fully motivated that did it unapologetically. So we also have a responsibility to those who follow us.
Yes, we do. We're paving the way for others. And, which leads, and the reason I asked about parole, because I know a lot of people coming home, that's a worry. That's something we got to worry about. It's an additional barrier in some ways, but also in a lot of ways, it keeps us on track. And so, one thing I always encourage people it doesn't matter the reputation of the parole officer. It doesn't even matter, that initial time, that point when you first see them. This is a relationship, so it's going to take some time. But as you continue to show up, because I had one of the, I guess they would call them like one of the strictest POs. And I owed like 8-9 years on parole. And so everyone told me like, "Yo, this guy's going to violate you. You don't stand a chance."
Right.
The way it worked out, I did everything I was supposed to do. I was showing up, like you said. I never gave him no dirties. I was working. I was actually paying. I was literally paying to be on parole. And then, our relationship totally changed, even so much that there was a time where I could have been violated. And he actually said, "You've been doing everything, man." He said, "I'm not violating you for this. Like, you're keeping your head down, you're grinding." And to this day, every once in a while, I reach out to that same parole officer just because of what you said, Adam. I want him to remember you have people out here who will do the right things, who will get off of parole. They just need the buy-in from you as well. And I try to share those positive messages with the judge that sentenced me, the parole officer, all of these different entities that usually don't hear the success or the positive stories. I try to trickle that in so the next person gets that opportunity. And I just hope they don't blow it for everyone else coming after them.
And if we're honest, and if you're honest when you're coming home, there's no reason to trust me.
Agreed.
There had been no reason. So it might be trust and confirm, but the fact is, it's a mechanical principle. Whenever you're putting new hoses or something into an engine, you pressure test them to make sure that they don't blow off under lower pressure. So I think that's part of what they do is they pressure test us. They're going to squeeze us a little bit and see how we react in the beginning. Once they realize you can take the pressure, then they back the pressure off.
I love that.
And I always see these things as runways too. One of the things we have to do is like everybody in a helicopter, so they can't just take off straight off a helipad. Some need longer runways to be able to get that speed up. Parole or probation is an opportunity for you to get your speed up and to be able to get that elevation that you need. I was able to save money. I paid off all my fines and stuff, but I wasn't buying any nonsense. I didn't get my shoe game tight until I got the ED job. When I got the ED job, then I had more than one or two pair of shoes. I think I'm up to 21 now, but but it's waiting for those things to happen, not trying to make them happen all at the same time. They say fast money and slow money spend the same. No, they don't, because I know plenty of people who had fast money who are wearing state shoes in the joint right now. They had all the nice shoes that I got, but they can't wear them.
That's right. So true.
I can wear mine to go back in and do them programs. We need to remember that part of it too, is it might take a minute, but you get to keep all your stuff and build on it.
I love that. And I love the fact of what you also mentioned about the sacrifice. We live in a microwave society, and for the listeners tuning in, especially our individuals who are locked down, man, when you get out of here, there's so much noise in the world. Like Adam was saying, that's why you can't wait, because waiting to get out, there's always something that's just going to continue to throw you this way, throw you that way. And you have to learn to sacrifice, man. Like, my kids make fun of me, so I just bought some Adidas. These things are like all back Adidas. I paid like $20 something for them, and they told me I'm wearing orthopedic shoes. And I laugh, but I also told them I know me, like you said before, and I could care less. You know what? These shoes are comfortable. I could go to the gym in them. I could wear them all day at work. These are comfortable. They make me feel good, and I could care less about anyone else, because when I was wearing those state issued shoes, guess who was wearing them? Just me. And so now if I decide to wear these Adidas that cost $20, who cares? It's just me, and I don't care how anyone else perceives me. And guess what? If I want to go out and get some Jordans or some Balenciagas or some Gucci or anything I want to get, I can do that. But why? I'd rather sacrifice. I rather continue to put the good fight up so I can spend my funds the way I choose to. And so for all of those out there, there's going to be sacrifices. There's going to be days where you don't get to go to the club or hang out with your friends like you want to. You got to get up in the morning and get work done. And so, the more equipped you are and the more willing you are to make sacrifices today for the greater good tomorrow, I like to always say that you're going to get a return on that investment because there's interest. And by you deferring the gratitude until later, the interest grows and the outcome becomes that much more sweeter once you get there.
And to balance those things, because I think that's the thing. Everything's a matter of balance. How you feel is how you feel, and sometimes it's okay to splurge a little bit, but you have to save first. I tell a friend of mine this on a regular basis. You can spend and you can save. You just can't spend first and then save later. You got to save first so that you have that, and don't dip into your savings.
That's right.
You can dip into the next thing that would have went into your savings. Yep. I've always got a safety net now. I mean, I came out, I wasn't paying into Social Security and stuff like that. I don't have a 401k. I don't have any of that stuff. So I had to create all that stuff when I came out. I invested in me. I invested in my future. And the fact is if everything went off the rails right now, I'd be able to take care of myself for a while. I wouldn't have to revert back, to being a stick-up kid.
Yes, sir.
Because I tell people in some of these rooms that I get into, people forget this. people who've never really done crime don't understand what it is to resist things that you've already done and you know is possible.
Yep.
And I used to say all the time when I was young, I was never broke because everybody was an ATM. I was always funds adjacent, you know?
I love that. And that's
Right.
real. That's real right there. That's real right there. No, you're right, man. And that's the reality. Like you just laid it out for him. And you know, uh-oh, Adam's not being browser storage. It stopped us for a minute. I never seen that before. Um, yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. That's what I'm hearing too. It's not used to that Adam the Great. So hopefully, I think hopefully it's continuing to record us right now. All right, good. And so, with that though, what? So you're an executive director. For individuals who might not be familiar with that title, would you be able to break that down? What an executive director is, what that means? Mm-hmm. Mm. Yep. Mm. That's right. Mm. That's right. Yep. Mm. Let's go. Let's go. Ooh. And that's whew, whew. Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Mm. 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 That's right. Yep. So very true. Very true. Very true. Mm. Talk, talk about it. Yep. You said, hey, for the listeners, man, if you're incarcerated right now, learning how to share your story is going to be critical. Here's some advice. There's look into public speaking, look into coaching and doing facilitating coaching sessions. Um, learn by telling your story to other people who are within your network who are incarcerated with you. You'll start to learn what jokes work, what lines hit, things like that. Because Adam is 1,000% right. I swear to you guys, I probably wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the story. I've identified years ago that my strength is in me being able to facilitate my story. My story has evolved to the point where it's now uh, from felon to Forbes. That story has gave me opportunities where I could be a consultant for Mark Zuckerberg's like Forward Us company. That story has opened up opportunities to my businesses to grow and thrive. But it all started honestly with me sharing my story. And so own your story, learn how to tell your story, get creative with your story. Don't be afraid from your story or bashful from your story because that's the product, like Adam said. Adam, I'm stealing that. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. That when we are released, we are the product, and your story is a part of the services that you're selling with that product. And so, I absolutely love it, bro. Absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Elevator pitch. Yep. Mm, mm, mm. Let's go. Let's go. As you should. Mm-hmm. Yep. Can't argue. That's right. That's right. And let me encourage you guys again. America loves the comeback story. Like America love Rocky, the comeback story. I mean, you could go down the list. It's always about the comeback story. You are the next comeback story. So don't be afraid to share that story and speak through it. Learn how to craft that, and remember, you are the product. So Adam, out of sake of time, I like to try to keep these interviews about 45 minutes to keep everyone engaged. As we start to wrap it up, I want to ask you a question. And this question is, what would you tell the 12 or the 17-year-old Adam who was about to pick up that gun and go do their that do what you were doing in that moment? What would you tell that person looking back at being the person you are today to hopefully deter them or get them on the right path? Mm, mm, potential. Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Yep. Yep. Mm, mm, mm. What? what sort of things reminded you that you weren't that piece of crap? Mm. Can't even see it in that moment, I would imagine. Right. Mm. Mhm. 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 You ain't that. Yep. 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 Mm. Yep. Mm. Yep. 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 Mm. That's right. That's right. No, I love it. And I love how you answered that question. Honestly, man, I love everything about your story, Adam. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like just the to be able to you honestly, like I talk to a lot of people, but you're somebody who those charges that you had, the duration that you spent incarcerated are two hard things to get over for that for most people. But today you're showing light and you're giving light to the brother or the sister who's doing 20 plus years, who has that violent offense, and you're showing them that you could still come out here and boss up. There's still opportunities for you. And the reality is like Adam mentioned earlier, the time right now is better than ever to actually have this lived experience. So tap into your greatness because it's inside of you. The only person who can extract it is you. And the only way it happens is through that personal development, getting to know who you are, like Adam said earlier in the interview. And so it's that's right. Yeah, that's so true. So Adam, real quick for you before we wrap it up. Any what's the wildest or the most interesting thing that you kind of seen while you were during that 20 plus years of incarceration? All right. Mm. 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 Get out of here. Mm. Mm. Yep. 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 Mm. Different light. Yo, we share that experience. So every Thursday, even just today, it's a Thursday for you listeners. I go back to the prison I was released from in 2007, and I facilitate my program roadmap to success. And to your point, man, I remember when I left that motherfucker, I told him I'll never be back. But now to be able to go back on the terms like this, where we get to go in, be impactful, help. Honestly, we're helping the staff, the COs. We're helping because, like you said, I'm giving kudos to those who actually helped me on my path, and giving them their flowers. But we're also showing the IIs or the incarcerated individuals that it's possible. And you know, there's people here who's gonna help you, but then there's also when you get out of here, you too can be on this side of things. And so I love you. I love you sharing that, man. I love that for you. I mean, yo, so man, I wish I could hug you right now, bro. Like, like seriously. Mhm. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And you did that, brother. You did that. Your story right here, I could promise you, you gave so many good jewels that a lot of brothers and sisters who are currently incarcerated are gonna hear this. They're gonna definitely love it. They're gonna be able to better themselves because of the information you shared. And so if you don't mind, go ahead and let's drop share your information where individuals could find you, share your information where they could find your organizations, either where your executive at or your own organizations. But let them know where they could find you at. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And so, with that being said, guys, I think this was an amazing episode of the show. So many jewels. I mean, I could honestly probably just having this conversation. I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching it and picking up some of the jewels myself. And so I invite you guys to do the same. I invite you to reach out to Adam. As you see, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's somebody that we could all learn some things from. Um, and then lastly, I just want to say thank you because you could be, you know, doing anything in the world right now, but you're tuned in with us, and we really appreciate you sharing some space and some time with us. And so, Adam, thank you again for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the jewel share. Thank you for what you're doing for others in Michigan. What up, though? All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. Oh, let me so, uh, so now it is just uploaded. It might take